2008 was the last time anyone could buy a home for cheap. It took a complete financial system meltdown to create that real estate opportunity. But here we are, 17 years later, and home seems impossibly out of reach for young Americans once again. Yet, something different is happening now. Something that most people aren't paying attention to. Right now, as I'm recording this, more than half of US states saw home values decline in April 2025. Not slow down, decline. During spring, the season historically known for the strongest buyer activity and price increases, active resale listings have more than doubled from 380,000 in April 2022 to 959,000 in April of 2025. In markets like Phoenix, 31% of home listings have seen price cuts. In Tampa, it's 29%. In Denver, 27% of listings have price reductions amid a staggering 65% jump in inventory. The cracks are spreading, but this isn't just another housing cycle. Three powerful forces are converging that could create a housing correction unlike anything we've seen since 2008. Play this right and you can make substantial progress in accumulating more wealth, or just the home that you've always wanted. So the first force is the Federal Reserve monetary system that created the most extreme housing bubble in American history, turbocharged during COVID with unprecedented money printing. The second, an AI revolution that's now eliminating hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs, the exact jobs that were keeping this housing market afloat. And the third, Bitcoin, which is quietly draining the investment demand that was inflating housing prices in the first place. Most analysts are missing this because they're looking at each piece separately. But when you connect the dots, you realize we're not just looking at a housing correction. We're looking at a complete restructuring of how Americans store their wealth, find employment, and afford shelter. This isn't 2008 repeating. It's something entirely new, and it's already started. To understand where we are today, we need to go back to March 2020. When COVID hit, the Federal Reserve didn't just lower interest rates. They unleashed the most aggressive money printing campaign in American history. In just 2 years, the growth rate of all dollars in circulations soared a historic 27% in 2020 to 2021. To put that in perspective, that's the biggest jump in the money supply in America's history. Bigger than the financial crisis of 2008 at 10%, bigger than the World War II at 18%, and bigger than the FDR stimulus to fight the Great Depression at 10%. But here's what they didn't tell you. Although some of that money went to workers' paychecks, a large portion of it flooded directly into assets like stocks, bonds, and most devastatingly, to everyday Americans' real estate. While the economy was supposedly struggling, home prices went completely parabolic. Houses that were $300,000 in 2019 were suddenly $500,000 by 2022. That's not market forces. That's what happened when you create trillions of dollars out of thin air and watch them chase the same limited supply of homes. But this wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the culmination of a 50 years experiment that started in 1971 when President Nixon officially abandoned the gold standard. Before 1971, if the government wanted to create new dollars, they had to back it with gold. That put a natural limit on how much money could exist. This debt chart will help you better see the story. Before this system ended, total credit market debt grew slowly and steadily, basically mirroring our nation's GDP growth. After 1971, though, debt exploded just as home prices did. Once our currency became unbound from any hard assets, government spending and borrowing went into another reality entirely. When you can create unlimited money, that money has to go somewhere. And where it went was into scarce assets, especially real estate. Because land is finite and is one of the most common assets our brain instinctively understands as valuable. This fundamentally changed what a house represents in our economy. Homes stopped being just the places to live and became financial instruments, store of value to protect against currency debasement. Wealthy individuals and institutions figured this out first. They started buying real estate not because they needed somewhere to live, but because they needed somewhere safe to park their money while the government could devalue dollars at will. The logic is inescapable. If you got millions of dollars and you know the Federal Reserve can print away the value of those dollars anytime they want, you buy hard assets. You buy land. You buy houses. This creates what economists call a scarcity premium. Regular families aren't just competing with other families for homes anymore. They're bidding against hedge funds, foreign investors, and anyone else using neighborhoods as personal savings accounts. And every time the Federal Reserve fired up the money printer, what they politely called quantitative easing, this whole cycle would accelerate. After the 2008 financial crisis, the Fed launched a massive money printing to save the economy. Home prices recovered and exploded past their previous peaks. Then came COVID, and they did it again, but this time on steroids. The effect of this on housing affordability followed a predictable escalation. At first, it required both parents working, then both parents working high paying jobs, then both parents working high paying jobs plus help from family, then perfect credit on top of everything else, then massive down payments became the norm. Each round of money printing raised the bar higher. We created a system where homeownership became a luxury good, accessible only to those who already had a significant wealth or could command top tier salaries. But here's the critical vulnerability in this entire system. It only works as long as there are enough high income buyers to sustain these inflated prices. The whole house of cards depends on a steady supply of people making six figure salaries who are willing and able to take on enormous mortgage payments. So, what happened when those buyers start disappearing? That vulnerability is being exposed right now. As we speak, an artificial intelligence revolution is systematically eliminating the high income jobs that were sustaining these inflated housing prices. The numbers are staggering. 491 people are losing their jobs to AI every single day in 2025. So far this year, 342 tech companies have laid off 78,000 workers, with 16,084 cuts taking place in February alone. But this isn't just corporate downsizing. This is a coordinated replacement of human labor with AI systems. And it's happening at the exact companies that employ the workers who could still afford to buy homes. The pattern is unmistakable. Major firms like Meta, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and IBM slash jobs across HR, support engineering, and media. Then immediately follow with AI product launches. They're not calling it replacing humans with AI. That would be a public relation nightmare, but that's exactly what's happening. The evidence is everywhere. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella revealed that 30% of companies' code is now AI written. Simultaneously, over 40% of their recent layoff targeted software engineers. IBM laid off 8,000 employees as AI systems took over the HR department. At Meta, operating profit margins increased from 23% in early 2023 to 42% today, all by cutting humans and deploying AI. These aren't minimum wage workers being eliminated. These are exact people who were keeping the housing market afloat. Software engineers making 122,000 in San Francisco and 168,000 in Silicon Valley. Financial analysts earning six-figure salaries and marketing professionals at tech companies commanding 100,000 plus compensation packages. Bloomberg research shows AI could replace 53% of market research analyst tasks and 67% of sales representative tasks. Anthropic CEOs predicts AI could eliminate half of all entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years. Here's the critical vulnerability. These workers were already financially stretched. Entry-level software engineers at major tech firms must dedicate more than half of their after-tax salary to afford typical homes in their communities. 4 in 10 Silicon Valley renters and homeowners spend more than 30% of their income on monthly rent or mortgage payments, classifying them as cost burdened by the federal standards. They were living paycheck to paycheck on six-figure salaries with massive mortgages and minimal savings. When these highly leveraged workers lose their jobs to AI, they can't just tighten their belts and wait it out. They're forced to sell immediately. And the data shows this is exactly what's happening. In Silicon Valley, condo prices have dropped back to their 2018 levels, and single-family home prices are back to their 2020 levels. Inventory is surging in tech hubs from Seattle to Austin as laid-off workers flood the markets with homes they can no longer afford. But there's another force amplifying this crisis that most people aren't seeing. Just as AI is eliminating the buyers, a massive wave of new constructions from the COVID building boom is hitting the market. The number of unsold completed new single-family homes hit the highest level since 2009, a 15-year high. Builders are desperately offering incentives that now total 13% of a home's sale price, up from just 1.5% in 2022. On a 400,000 home, that's $52,000 in incentive just to attract buyers. We currently have 120,000 completed units available for builders to sell, representing a 9.8 months of supply, nearly double the healthy 5 to 6 month level. These are homes built during the pandemic, when money was cheap and demand seemed endless. Now they're completing just as the buyers who could afford them are losing their jobs to artificial intelligence. The result is a perfect storm. AI systematically removing high-income workers just as COVID-era constructions floods the market with homes priced for an economy that no longer exists. Bitcoin represents something that hasn't existed in over 50 years, a truly finite digital asset that cannot be inflated away by central banks. Unlike housing, which requires competing with families for shelters, Bitcoin provides a pure store of value functionality without displacing anyone from the neighborhood. It offers a solution to the wealth storage problem without creating a human cost. Let the numbers put this in perspective. Global real estate is valued at 379 trillion. Bitcoin sits just at $2 trillion. Gold, the traditional store of value, is at 22 trillion. Bitcoin is still less than 1% of the size of the real estate market. Even if Bitcoin grows significantly, it will take a good amount of time to meaningfully compete with real estate. But the direction of change matters more than the current scale. What we're seeing now are the early signs of institutional adoption. Some corporations are allocating treasury reserves to Bitcoin. Certain pension funds are exploring Bitcoin as a small portfolio allocation. A few sovereign wealth funds are quietly accumulating digital assets. These moves are still marginal, but they represent the beginning of a potential shift in how institution thinks about wealth storage. The key insight is that over time, Bitcoin will chip away at the store of value premium of real estate. The housing affordability crisis won't go away overnight, but Bitcoin does represent the first credible alternative since the gold standard ended. If adoption continues, it could gradually reduce some of the speculative pressure on housing markets. The remarkable aspect is that you don't need to own Bitcoin to potentially benefit from this gradual shift. If even a small percentage of speculative real estate demand migrates to Bitcoin over time, it could help reduce the scarcity premium that was layered on top of housing's actual utility value. Every institution or investors who eventually chooses Bitcoin over real estate speculation removes some bidding pressure from the housing markets. So, to summarize, these three forces, the Fed's monetary bubble, AI jobs elimination, and Bitcoin wealth drainage, are converging into what I see as a checkmate for the current real estate market. This isn't just another cyclical downturn. This is a structural rebalancing of an entire system that's been distorted for decades. Housing markets move incredibly slowly. Unlike stocks, market that can shift in days or weeks, real estate corrections take time. The current cracks we're seeing, inventory surges, price cuts, builder incentives, are just the beginning of a longer process. It takes time for forced selling to accelerate, for builder capitulation to occur, and for market sentiments to fully shift. If I were in the market for a home right now, I would be patient and wait well into 2026. These macro forces take time to fully play out in housing markets. The temptation might be to jump at the first sign of price softening, but patience will likely be rewarded. The logic for waiting is compelling. AI layoffs are accelerating with more high-income jobs disappearing monthly. Builder inventory from COVID construction boom is still hitting the market hard. Bitcoin adoptions continues pulling speculative money away from real estate. Mortgage rates will likely remain elevated, keeping pressure on demand. There's no positive catalyst visible that could reverse these three powerful forces. If I had to place a bet, I bet that the market cracks to the downside before there's any meaningful return of demand. I hope this video has provided a unique and valuable perspective for you. My name is Luke, and I'm a financial planner by day. Take care, everyone.